Hello, friends. I'm waiting for my little progress wheel to stop spinning and giving a few of you just a minute to get on before I say anything spectacular, as is my wont, is to say things spectacular. Good, good. Got four of you already. Welcome. Glad you're joining me. Hi, Heather. Good. Now you hear me. Very good. Hey, I'm doing actually enjoying this quite a bit. I started this painting yesterday afternoon. It's unusual in a couple respects. The main one being the size of this painting, 12 by 16. That's unusual for me. And it's a wedding painting, again, that I'm doing from a photograph. So that's, again, a little bit unusual that I'm not doing it live or not doing it, yeah, not doing it live, but that I'm doing it from a photograph. So, and without an audience, as you can see, I'm in the comfort of my own studio. I can go get a snack, I can get a drink, I can run to the bathroom, I can change the music, all that stuff that all that stuff that makes painting in your studio so difficult. Because it's just too dang easy to paint in your studio. You catch my drift? You just take all the breaks in the world. When you're painting outside, either on plein air, then stuff's flying away and people are coming by and the light is changing every minute you're out there. The lights change. So when you're painting on plein air, there's a lot of pressure. When you're in your studio, well, there's no pressure. Some of you need to hear that, by the way. Your biggest problem might be you're too comfortable. So it's hard for me, literally hard for me to paint in my studio. That's part of the reason why I do these broadcasts. So you guys kind of, so to speak, you kick my butt. You make me stay at work. You help me keep focus. Anyway, here is one of the photographs I'm working from. This is a bride and groom whose wedding I did live up in Connecticut last fall, and they wanted me to do another one of them. So this is a smaller one. And I'm going to talk about pencils in just a minute, but let me just tell you a little bit about what I'm doing here. I decided, since I have the luxury of painting not under pressure, I'm going to practice what I preach. I don't know if you've heard this preach or not, but that is, when it comes to cheating, you know what I mean by cheating. Anytime you project, trace, measure, grid, anything like that. The best way to do this, and I do absolutely this, I'm serious about this. I don't always have the luxury when I'm on location, doing the wedding on location. But in a setting like this where there's no outside pressure, here's what I like to do. I like to do as much of the painting as you can without any cheating whatsoever. Does that make sense? Just do it. Just do it without any kind of cheating. As I said, just look at the photograph and paint away. So here's what I'm going to do today, just for fun. I would love it if I'm able to knock this thing out without any cheating whatsoever. But of course, if I get fairly late in the process and I feel like I am not, or I'm struggling with the figures, struggling too much, I'm just not getting it. We've all had that feeling, right? All of us artists have had that experience. I reserve the right, of course, to cheat, quote unquote, late in the process if I need to. So, but I'm hoping I won't have to. I'm hoping I'll just be able to knock this thing out like in the olden days, like John Singer Sargent did. With he comes up a lot in my conversations, doesn't he? Without doing any cheating. Okay, now it is get serious time. It is time to look at the the bride and groom face and figure and see if I can do a decent rendering of them. I don't care. I think I'm actually heroicizing them a little bit, and I'm okay with that. I hope my client, bride and groom, will be okay with that. I'm using a funny word, heroicizing. That means I'm making them taller and thinner, demigod-like. Speaking of Sargent, he was famous for this. He heroicized. I've never heard that word in my life, by the way, but he turned his portraits, many of them, into epic proportions. If the literal, typical human is 7 heads high, that is typical, right? You've probably heard that, maybe 7.5. If that's typical, listen to this. Most of your figures, however, if you're painting a figure, most of your figures ought to be 8 heads high. Let's just mark it down. Do not, if you're doing a portrait of somebody and it includes their full figure, do not make them 7 heads tall. Make them 8 heads tall. John Singer Sargent, there's one of his most famous, and I forget now what the name of it is, but it's a very famous painting of a lady. She's either in black or white. I can't remember, maybe black and white. Anyway, and she's like a historic, I want to say 10 heads tall, something like that. I mean, it's a gorgeous painting, and when you first look at it, you don't think, oh my goodness, if I saw this woman walking down the street, I would scream because she's so freakishly tall and thin. You don't think that because it's a believable, he does such a good job. But anyway, so yeah, these characters, in fact, I just realized right now I've got to make this guy's head a little bit bigger. I do not want these to be 11 heads tall. 10 maybe, but they're one of those. They were both very handsome couple, very tall and thin, both of them. Well, I say she was very tall. I'm not sure. She comes off in this photograph as looking very tall. It seems like she was a little bit on the tall side. I'm trying to remember last fall when I was somewhere in Connecticut. Basically a New York wedding, really. Just the reception was outside the city on the Connecticut side of town. It is interesting doing portraits. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Like this, figures. That touche is a little bit too far. By the way, I do have an eraser. Hang on just a second. I have an art drawer over here. When doing the female figure, I want to say something like, there are just a few lines that you really want to get right, especially if you want, a flattering figure. Just a few lines. The small of the back is one. That's the main one. Secondary to that is the top of her rump, where her back starts curving back toward her derriere. That line right there is very important. The rest of this, not so much. This could be hidden by a dress. Do you see? If her dress came down straight down from here, which many dresses do, it's not the dress that gives the indication of her shape. It's that curve and that straight. Likewise, of course, on the inside, everybody knows me, but it's not really flat. And then, of course, in this case, the bottom side of her breast, which is, at the moment, it's lost in all this mess. And of course, then there's a French name. What's the French name? Help me, for the woman's, this literally her chest, where I'm slapping on. I know you can't see me, but there's a French name for this, and I forget. It's like the highbrow, hoity-toity name for the attractive part of a woman's anatomy without being off color. Are you with me? And it refers primarily to, but as an artist, what I'm referring to is this slope from the pit of her neck down to the end of her breast. That whole slope, that's a key. That's a key, and it's mostly hidden here. You know, that line right there is important, and that line's important. Stomach and back. Those are, in my quick estimate right now, are the few lines. And of course, if neck, both sides of a neck, and so on. Anyway, I can stop there. Let's talk about doing pencils in a painting. And I've had several of my viewers have sent questions or complaints about their own experience in this regard, having problems making it work. So let me, first of all, demonstrate it. I'm opening my paints over here. My paints are pre-mixed. Okay, and if you haven't watched me before, I'll give you a quick tour. My favorite acrylic medium is GAC 100. That's expensive. So I don't spend that much on oil paint, but I spend a fair bit of money on medium. I said oil. I don't spend that much money on paint, acrylic, but I spend a decent amount. So this is about, I'll show you also. I use cheap acrylics because they're fluid acrylics, because I'm mixing them with good medium, and it works well. So I happen to use a Lucas Acryl Studio. This is about 50-50. If, however, you were to use a high quality acrylic paint, like out of a tube, the ratio would be something more like 60-40, 70-30. That is to say, 30% paint, 80% medium. 30-80. Listen to me. 30-70 or 20-80. Okay. Okay. Now let's zoom in here to the problem at hand. Some of you have had trouble using the pencils. Again, what kind of pencil? These come from Jerry's Artorama. Oh, sorry. These come from Jerry's Artorama. They're called Jumbo Jet Black. Is there any other word? Let me get a longer one and see if there's any other word. Nope, that's it. Okay. They're they're an oil-based pencil. Not quite a grease pencil, but very close to it. And I want you to notice, first of all, let's see if I'm zoomed in as far as I can get. There we go. Yeah, good math, huh, Heather? The first thing, and I need a piece of scrap paper here. I just threw out a bunch of my scrap paper. Sorry, hang on. I'll be right back. All I need is a piece of junk mail. Oh, good grief. Okay, sorry about that. Boy, bad planning. Had to go all the way to kitchen trash envelope. Let's focus in on, I've drawn the back side and get you in as close as I can. The back side of this girl, this bride. Okay, there. Okay, let's look at her arm. I have noticed, kind of to my chagrin, a tendency among art students, when they don't know what they tend to do the counterpart of what I call brushy. Brushy is when you don't know what to do, so you go like this. Hear that sound? It says brushy. Terrible way to paint. And I find students doing the same thing with their pencils. Now, I don't know whoever told you or made you think that's an elbow. Whoever made you think that's proper drawing. That is not proper drawing. Sorry, I hate to burst your bubble. So I'd like you to notice, first of all, here's her arm, one line. Inside her arm, another line. You saw I actually erased a little bit a minute ago. That was just mainly to show you, to make a correction, but I don't do that normally. And here's, you see that? Few lines, first of all. Let's make sure that you're drawing properly. You're not doing scribbly, 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 thereby slapping all kinds of unnecessary, forgive me while I jerk you around, putting all kinds of unnecessary gray, black pigment on canvas. Nope, only what is needed. Okay, now I'm going to my chip brushes. Okay, I'll let you look at my palette for just a minute while I make this quick transaction. I'm going to do glazes over basically getting my chip brushes wet. And let's start with a warm. So again, my brushes are almost dripping wet. If I shake them, water comes off it, okay? So fairly wet, not soaking wet like that necessarily, but damp. I am also going to, I don't have to do this, but if you're having trouble, this might be a good idea. Dip your brush in a jar of medium. Okay, now back to the painting. Ready? Okay, here we go. I'm experiencing virtually no smearing. Now, some of you, maybe, this trying to incorporate pencils into your painting may finally force you to, forgive me, painting correctly. Because again, the student left to his or her own devices would have gone, wah, 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 wah. Observe the unpleasant sound. Wah, wah, wah. That's a dead giveaway that I don't think that's a good way to paint. Are you with me? I rinsed the brushes. I'm going to pick up some purple this time. By the way, as you can imagine, I'm taking quite a bit of liberties with this rather poor photograph. The color, the composition is great, but the lighting is not. The photographer didn't have any choice. It was an overcast day. Nice for skin tones, overcast, by the way. Not great for a dramatic outdoor scene. So I feel free, of course, to take liberties with that. So I've just put orange color, purple-ish color, and now I'm going to do blue, a little bit of phthalo, and a little bit of ultramarine, and once again dip my brush in the GAC 100. And my pencils, as far as I can see, I don't think my pencils have smeared at all. Now, I'm going to do something I don't usually do, but I think I can get away with it. I'm going to, I don't usually lift out acrylics at all, but as you know, you have a few seconds. You have to be quick with acrylics. You have not got all day. You have just a little bit of time if you want to lift out. So I'm going to do that. Again, I'm still not experiencing any smearing of the pencil. I'm rubbing, as you can see, pretty lightly, but I don't feel like I'm being, what's the word, neurotic about it. It's just fairly lightly. Same thing up there. Ooh, okay, I like that. So I might end this broadcast right there and start again part B in just a minute. If I don't pick this up right now, this thing's going to be thoroughly glued to my palette, my easel. So there. Let me bring you in close again. So there you have it. I don't really see any smearing of the pencil. So those of you who are having trouble, watch this video and then tell me what I'm doing that I'm not doing. I suspect two things. One, ouch, sorry about that rough ride. One is I suspect that you're drawing scribbly, scribbly, scribbly. Number two, I suspect that you're painting brushy, brushy, brushy. Both of which are bad ways to draw and bad ways to paint. Sorry to be harsh. Okay? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop this. I'll be back in just a few minutes. I'm going to take a heat gun and dry this, and I'll continue this painting in acrylics, last layer of acrylics in just a few minutes with the last layer of white. Okay? Thanks, guys. Be back in a minute. All right, welcome back. So I am down to probably the last layer of acrylics. The last layer before I go to oils is almost always white. In this case, and yes, this is all drying, by the way, I mentioned I use a heat gun, not a hair dryer. This is made by TF, Top Flight. This is the third one of these I've owned. Each one lasts about 5 years, not bad. And it's 400 degrees, not a hair dryer. Woo! I like it because it's faster than a hair dryer and quieter. Both characteristics I like quite a bit. So this particular painting I've taken to a higher level of finish than I normally do in the acrylic stage. So that means I'm going to do a little bit of unconventional things with it. Instead of just doing pure white, I'm going to be doing some translucent colors. I could call it opaque, but by the way, for what it's worth, you guys, it turns out it's actually quite difficult to make acrylic paints truly opaque. They tend to be, they dry more transparent than they go on, and that can by the way really tend to drive an acrylic painter crazy. The fact that they don't stay the color. It has a little bit of that characteristic like of Elmer's glue. Do you know what I mean? Elmer's glue, when you look at it in the bottle, it's white, right? But when it dries, it turns clear, almost perfectly clear. And acrylics have some of that same characteristic. So it's more accurate really to speak of translucent, even though I usually say white opaque acrylic, it's actually more translucent. Okay, let's just zoom in here so you can see what I'm doing. Really good teaching point right here. This is one of the chief reasons for not incorporating any drawing in your painting, is because most people, once they've put down lines, their subconscious kicks in and they cannot stop themselves from coloring inside the lines, like a third grader with a coloring book, okay? And that is disastrous. And I'm going to demonstrate a correction. Like as soon as I was drying this, I went, oh my goodness, her arm is like, it's way too far. Her upper arm is way too far that way, so I'm going to move it that way. And as I like to say, witness my distress. In other words, there ain't any, okay? And that's what I invite you. I know I say this kind of thing a lot, but most artists tend to beat themselves up. Stop. Just don't. Stop beating yourself up. Witness your distress. I'm painting. What better could be than that? Okay, so I know, forgive me for being a little bit silly, but trying to make a point. I'm not upset by that. First of all, if you've watched me much, you know that I say fairly often, in the underpainting stages, not only is it okay for you to be off, erroneous, make mistakes, it's actually to your advantage. So I'm ignoring this line right here, right now. I'm just repainting where her arm, I think, ought to be. And by the way, so again, part of the reason in my approach to painting is I sneak up on my subject matter little by little by little. By the way, this guy's jacket is so ridiculously in the wrong place. I don't even want to talk about it. Hey, witness my distress. Never mind. I've drawn this subject matter roughly 6 or 7 times now, and I am still making corrections. That's the key thing. Again, I know I repeat myself a lot, but let me repeat myself. One of the tendencies that beginner painter drawers, one of the mistakes they tend to make, is they put down initial drawing, right? And then they tend to believe, trust, rely on, keep, retain, follow, obey their preliminary drawings. That's the mistake. Nothing wrong with putting down a preliminary. You got to start somewhere. The key thing is keep making corrections. Keep on, keep on, keep on correcting as you go. Okay, I've just cleaned my brushes very quickly, and I've got white on them now. So there, I just obliterated kind of, except you can still see it, right? And that's part of the reason why making mistakes early in the process makes you end up with a better painting than if you didn't make mistakes. I'm doing the same thing here on her derriere. I am not believing or trusting. I don't believe the line that I made earlier. So I just redrew that. Okay, so I want to really make sure you get that. Redraw, redraw. With each pass, shall we say, with each layer of the painting, your attention to correct detail gets more precise. So you just correct. You make corrections, make corrections, make corrections, all the way along. So the term I often use is in my approach to painting, the artist is always sneaking, taking baby steps, tiptoeing up to his or her subject matter. Be patient. Give yourself lots of time to arrive at your destination. Don't try to get there all in one bound. Be patient with yourself. Little by little by little. Your brain can only take in so much information. One of the ways I could describe my process is your brain can only take in a little bit of information at a time, at one layer per glance or whatever, then only paint that much information. Don't pretend you're painting a lot more. Sneak up on your subject matter, little by little by little. So I'm making little corrections here with this layer. This will probably be my last layer of acrylics. Although, no, hang on, I'm gonna change gears real quick. Got another brush, mixing up some dark stuff. I have to make a correction to this guy's general physique. He's got to be wider than that. There we go. In effect, I am making these figures larger in this architecture than they were in real life, and at least I think I am. And I think I'm okay with that. We'll find out in the later stages. If I change my mind, then I'll change my mind. Right now I'm feeling like that's a little bit better. Just by the way, it's a good time to take the glasses off. There is a slight advantage to getting older and needing to wear corrective lenses. That is, you can take your glasses off and it saves squinting. Everything exists in a natural state of squint. Okay. I don't like the shape of that man very much, but that's all right. I'm going to shape him up shortly. I'll whip him into shape shortly. Let me rethink. By the way, here I'm going to erase. Rare moment there where I actually literally erased something. Again, without getting too upset about it. You really can paint slightly faster with two hands, by the way. Another reason that I recommend it to you. Oh, somebody left a comment and I missed it. course, I can't read it because I don't have my glasses on, but I'll throw my glasses on really quickly if I see a comment comes in. Let's see if I can get my monitor a little bit closer to me here. Sorry about all the shaking you're getting there. Once again, I'm sort of glad that the acrylics, the white that I'm putting down right now, is not strictly opaque. I call it opaque white, but it's actually going to dry quite translucent, which is good because it'll let a lot of the information underneath show through. Okay, a quick comment about the pencil again. The pencil thing. I typically apply those grease-ish pencils twice in a painting. Once in the acrylic stage, which is what you saw me do a few minutes ago, and then a second time during the oil painting stage. And again, just in case you haven't heard me, my use of pencils does not correlate. It is not parallel to a traditional oil painter's use of charcoal. It is not the same thing. When a traditional oil painter starts his or her painting by doing a quick sketch in vine charcoal, traditionally on a bare canvas, they do not want or expect any of that charcoal to appear in the final composition. They're just using the charcoal to draw. And I heartily disapprove. Well, that's putting it too strong. I actually have a video on YouTube that it's called something like charcoal underneath a painting or something like that. And it's so if you want to watch it, I actually demonstrate that use of charcoal in one of my videos, and it's one that has been viewed quite a few times, I think. Relatively speaking, 50,000 or something like that, maybe more. So it certainly is it can be done, but I want to make sure that you understand that what I'm doing here is not that. So I typically do the pencils once in the acrylic stage and once in the oil stage. Now, after either of those steps, after the pencil is finished, immediately after it's finished, my painting is much too pencil-ish, too liney, too dry. It's got way too much pencil in it, in my opinion. But that doesn't bother me at all, because as you see me doing right here, in the subsequent layers after doing the pencil, much of it gets covered up. Now, not all of it, of course. And again, a grumpy person could say, well, if you're just going to cover it up, why'd you put it there in the first place? Well, because to put it down and then cover it up is not the same as never having put it down. I am certainly not covering it all up, but the point being that I end up with not too much, in my opinion, with not too much pencil, because much of it is going to get covered up, both in the oil and the acrylic stage. But just enough. Again, that's an easy way to paint. One of the ways, again, I describe my painting process is I'm not smart enough to paint good. I know the proper is paint well, but I'm using bad usage grammar to make the point. I'm not smart enough to paint good, but I'm smart enough to see good painting when I see it, to recognize good painting when I see it. My own painting I'm talking about. I'm smart enough to go, oh, wait a minute, I should not cover that up. That's basically what I'm saying. And that applies to the pencil as well. I don't know how much pencil I should put on the painting. I don't know, but later in the process, I'm smart enough to go, ooh, now there's a little line I don't want to cover up. Does that make sense? That's an easy judgment to make. I'll switch my grip here because I really want to try to get a fairly narrow mark for this man's collar and shirt. And boutonniere. Now, I don't know, I may get late in this process and decide I don't like how heroic this couple is. They might be a little bit much, in which case I'll have to do some serious redrawing. But I'm not making that decision yet, but I can see that that might be coming up. Okay, just about done with this white layer. Oh, I need to do a little bit on the foreground. Lighten up some of these paving stones. Let me repeat something I say often. Whenever you have a highly variegated surface, like this paving stones, not highly variegated, but somewhat, how do you paint such a thing? How do you paint a busy passage, like trees, bushes, hair, skin, wiry, wrought iron stuff? How do you paint stuff like that? The one answer is layers. Layers. Let's go back to trees for a minute. How do you paint branches in a tree? The answer is not all at once. For goodness sake, you don't mix up a color of paint, stick out your tongue, and start painting branches. No, you do layer, let it dry, layer, let it dry, or in the case of Alla Prima oil, layer, another layer in the wet, layer in the wet, layer in the wet. I still see this mistake being made so often by students who want to indicate trees. They tried to paint them all in one layer. Just, again, it can be done. Bob Timberlake, that was an example of trees painted, so to speak, all at once. But he's doing his, don't imitate him. I mean, I like Bob's work, but you don't want to imitate it. It's his style. It's not good painting. If you try his style, that's not called good painting. Okay. Glasses back on. I'm debating whether I want to mess with that anymore in acrylics before I go to oil. And you know what? I think I do, because I think I've got too many. Here's when you go to oil. When you, using my approach to painting, here's when you go to oil. When the drawing is mostly correct. And white, it's got too many at this point in the stopping. So let's do one more quick layer of acrylic and see if we can get some of those corrections made. By the way, when I start doing the figures, seriously, shall we say, when I start getting up close and personal on their faces, I'm going to grab one of my phone cameras and look at the image on my camera, on my phone screen, instead of on this rather bad print off from my computer. And part of what I'm saying there is the image on your phone is probably considerably better than the image on the computer print. Now I could have put photo paper on my printer and it would have come out better, but the printer I'm using right now is having trouble with photo paper, so I'm not doing that. So here I'm intentionally putting this warm color into the bride's dress. Again, trying to make some real quick last-minute corrections just before I go to oil. So mixing up some dark stuff here. Yes, I think I might be struggling with perspective, Heather. We'll and his shoulder is just too high, isn't it? I keep doing it too high. Let me make that correction real quick. Oh, I might be able to just wipe it off just like that. That was nice. Easy. Nice and easy, I mean. Yeah, he doesn't come back far enough. His leg needs to be back here. So this white thing behind him, I wonder if I can scratch that off. Yep, good. Fingernails come in handy. It's a little better. Glasses off again. Taking the glasses off helps you see the big shapes without getting distracted by the details. Aha, then the gap between his two legs I had in the wrong place, and I've moved it over quite a bit. See, changes are so easy to make in the acrylic stage. It gets a little bit trickier when you get into oil. Not as easy to change things around. I've just got some pale orange on my brushes right now. I was liking the feel that it made right there. I'm closer, much closer. Maybe I'm close enough to switch. I think I am. I'm going to call that close enough to go to oil. So I'm going to pause here, take a few minutes. I'll keep broadcasting to show you the rest of the process. That'll be dry. By the time I put away my acrylics and get on my oils, that'll be dry. So I'll be back in just a few minutes. Hello, welcome back. So I am ready to proceed to the oil painting stage of this painting. Small little painting. Difficult for me generally to paint this small. But on the other hand, I'm having fun because, darn, it's really fast. You can paint, when you paint small, you can finish a painting in much less time. So that's kind of nice. If you're not familiar with my technique, everything on the canvas up until this point has been acrylics. It's all acrylics. Hello, Heather. Good to see you again. And now I will do several different colors of glaze in oil. So from this point on, the painting is an oil painting. Even though at the moment, almost all the information on the canvas is, of course, acrylic. And clean these brushes really quickly. So I want to go now to some warm colors. And of course I mix right on. The medium that I'm using for you newcomers is Liquin Original. It's a gel. It sits right on my palette having me bother with a cup or anything. It just sits there, doesn't run away. Okay, I have here on my brushes a little bit of orange and Indian yellow. Indian yellow and cad orange imitation. I noticed yesterday, though, I didn't realize it's a real cheap, I won't give you the name, but it's a real student grade orange imitation. And yeah, I don't recommend it. So that's why I'm not going to name it. I'm going to use it up. It's not so bad that I can't paint. I'm so good I can paint with bad products. I'm sound like I'm being braggadocious. Maybe I am, but no, really I want to make a point. Whoops, oh, hang on. The man's coming to fix our AT&T, so I'm going to let him in. Hello, Trey.
Oh,
come on in. Thank you so much for rescuing us.
I'm assuming you unplugged something?
I'm assuming I did too, sir. Sorry about that.
Always.
Tell you what, I'm gonna pause you guys for just a minute. I'll be back just a second soon. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that interruption. Continuing now with the glazing. It is often at this point in my technique, in the painting process, this point that I feel like what's ever on my canvas actually turns into, I know I'm kind of playing word games, but actually turns into a painting. Because it's where, and as you can see at the moment, I'm doing the very traditional vignetting the corners. You have to be careful about anything like this that is too traditional. It can become a trap. Like don't ever let anybody tell you you should always vignette the corners. No, you should not always. Sometimes when it's appropriate. And in this case, I feel like it's appropriate. Let me get this out of the way. But it's at this point that I feel like that the painting, because I'm dealing with major values issues, that it finally starts talking, speaking, walking like a painting instead of a picture, if I can use that derogatory term. We don't paint pictures, we paint paintings. Thank you, Trey. Appreciate it. There's a hair. This is one of the downsides of those chip brushes. They shed a lot. It doesn't usually bother me very much. It just helps the painting, gives the painting a little extra texture. Kind of proves that the painting was done by a human being. Oh boy. And it was done, not by a computer. It's got hairs in it. When the computer painters start putting hairs on their printouts, I'll be impressed. And don't laugh, it could be done. It may be done. Just make it look like it's more like it was a real painting. They have somebody programs in there that it drops random hairs onto the canvas to make it look real. That's a great idea. Maybe I should pursue that. Maybe that'll be my ticket to be a millionaire. Sell it to Disney for $1 million. Okay. Let me stand back and see if I like those colors. No, I don't actually. I think that the purple at the top is just a little too purple, so I'm going to anti-purple it with some orange, but not straight up orange, dull orange. In other words, oxide red, brown, orangish brown. There we go. That's a little better. Yeah. Again, one of the things I like about this approach to painting is now, because of all the layers, most of which were, as you saw, were applied, or you have seen in other paintings, were applied very quickly. Layers and layers and layers acrylic paints. That's what acrylics are good for, fast layers. Oil, because this is what oils are good for, which is details and finesse. Okay, done with chip brushes, except I'll use some handles to scratch with. Now, as you know, I very often then, let me see if I can get the exposure to adjust for us here. It's going to get light, darker. Come on, come on, come on. Not much, okay. And one of the nice things about painting this small, paint this small, right up there next to it. Okay, after doing the glaze, most of the time I lift out with a rag. It gives me so much control without being a control freak. I don't know if that makes any sense. It gives me so much control without looking like or having the effect of being a control freak. I'm looking for a soft, clean brush over here. Okay, got one. Again, this canvas is so small, I have to be a little more precise than normal in my wiping out. So I'm just using a brush instead of a rag to lift out this stuff. So I have a little bit more control than normal. I am going to introduce some more dramatic lighting into this subject matter than is indicated in the photo. I'm going to have light coming from the left and light hitting high on this architectural structure. Not so much let the whole thing kind of fade into darkness down near the bottom. I do want a little bit of light here in the sky, however. Okay, I don't know how that looks to you, but when I sort of stand back and squint, so to speak, this is now a whole lot more painterly than it was before I did those glazes of oil. It looks a lot more like a painting, if you will, because of the large value really being drawn. And I hope my client won't complain, because this is what she sent me, and this is what I'm doing to it. I hope she agrees with me that this utterly and completely kicks you-know-what over this. I'm going to take the chance that she's going to agree with me. Okay, the glaze is finished. The next step in my painting process is optional. I have two options. You're going to do A and then B, or B and then A. I'm either going to draw with brushes, small brushes, dark details in oil. This is the size I'm talking about. By the way, these are my favorite make of brush is Silver Brush Company. I'm looking for one that doesn't have all the writing. Silver Grand Prix, extra long filbert. All of those. Those by far and away my favorite brush. I know Rosemary makes some fantastic brushes. When it comes to watercolor, sable brushes, the best in the world are Winsor Newton Series 7, but usually all I use these for is my signature in oil painting. So anyway, back to the skinny brushes. I'm either going to draw with brushes and then pencils, or pencils and then brushes. And in this case, it's easy because there's so much pencil work that is already obvious. It doesn't need any, it's not asking for pencil lines. So I'm definitely going to go straight to to drawing with brushes. Now, my go-to color for this stage is what I call dark black, B-L-E-C-K, which is transparent black, made by red oxide and ultramarine blue. You can mix many colors to get dark black. That's my most typical. And I like it. The problem with it, whoops, turns out I put the wrong picture up there for now. I want pictures of the architecture. The downside of that is it's a color killer. Does that make sense? When I am using this color, I'm not adding color to the canvas. I'm, in a sense, taking it away. So after having mixed this up so carefully, I'm actually going to set those brushes aside, and I'm going to mix up another color, a dark, transparent, but with red in it. Permanent Rose, a very strong red. Now, I don't want it that strong. I've mixed in a little ultramarine and a little oxide red, a little bit of liquid so it flows. So it's sort of a dark burgundy. And I'm going to start, I may use that other color that I mixed up just a minute. I probably will. But I'm at least going to start drawing with color. Now, some other colors that would be a good candidate would be purple, any kind of dark red, dark blue, ultramarine, dark green, possibly. That would be, I wouldn't want to do it for this painting, I don't think, but maybe in the future when I'm a more mature painter, I might go, heck yeah, dark green's perfect, man. But I'm not that mature now, perhaps, because I don't, my soul does not resonate with the idea of dark. So this is, again, either the 7th or the 8th time that I have drawn this subject matter. Let me zoom in. Heather's asking, would I ever mix two colors, so to speak, on the canvas? The answer is absolutely yes, Heather. Very good question. Instead of mixing dark black on my palette, like could you do? Let's say for instance, Heather, a dark color that's has a lot of viridian green in it, and then opposite of that, a dark color that's like this, has a lot of red in it. And the answer is absolutely. In fact, if I haven't said this today yet, but I virtually never do the whole drawing with one color. Like here I am talking about mixing up a color. This is just to get started with. Yeah. So I'm usually quite aware of, okay, as I go along, I want to migrate. I want the color to shift slightly. Why? Because one of the mostly immutable laws of painting. That's what I used to call it. Now we call it the breakable laws of painting because not enough people know what immutable means. So my humor was lost when I called something mostly immutable. That was supposed to be funny, and nobody laughed. So I've changed it to the breakable laws of painting. And yes, everything that I just said was bordered on smartass. One of the breakable laws of painting is that graduations are more fun than flats. That is to say, anytime you can have a color start and gradually go to another color, it's better than the same color all the way across. In this case, even if it's not a plane of color, but it's the color with which I am drawing. So yeah, I get more bang for my buck if I change color as I go. And mixing. Oh yeah, Heather is again saying that in watercolor, black. Oh, absolutely. Same thing in acrylics and oil. Black is very much frowned upon. Now, I would like to correct that. I learned that in college. Never use black. I have, since college days, I have modified that truism. A truism is something that's usually true and is stated a little bit too often. The truism, I've changed it to not don't use black. Instead, don't misuse black. It is absolutely okay to use black paint. You just have to understand that when you are using black paint, you are diminishing color, or as often say, you are killing color. But killing color is not always a bad thing. Sometimes it's exactly the right thing to do. So again, be careful of the old adage is don't use black. The truth is, no, there's times to use black. Don't misuse black. Okay, I was going to say, so here I am drawing this subject matter for approximately, I'd have to go back and count more carefully, the 8th time. And part of what makes my drawing easy, so to speak, quote unquote easy, is that I don't try to do it all at once. I don't try to get it right the first time. So just little by little by little by little, I try to get it correct. But I don't try to get it correct all at once. In fact, as I already said once today, the errors that you make in the earlier stages of the drawing actually work to your advantage. At our painters group last night, second Tuesday of every month, if you're ever in town, you're welcome to join us. Just send me a note and I'll tell you where we meet. In our painters group, one of my fellow artists, David Foster, very fine painter, he had a still life, small oil still life, and he had made a major change in his drawing and had modified the drawing with oils. Drawing with oils, you understand? Drawing doesn't necessarily infer like pencils or anything like that. But he had made a change, but you could still see where his earlier erroneous drawing was. It was a still life with flowers. So you could see the ghost of his earlier flower petals. And he had already noticed, sorry, somebody left a comment that I just missed, I believe. He had already made the observation that the faint, if I'm using the word ghost image, the erroneous images that were still peeking through were actually very pleasant and added much to his painting. So it's not just me, it's not just my paintings that I realize that the underneath errors are advantageous. I believe it's pretty universal. By the way, I just took a second to color there's a pillar peeking around the back here that right up until now was pretty blue, so you could hardly distinguish it between it and the sky. There we go. Now we've got it peeking through. Now this is a little bit tedious for you guys. I'm not sure how much I want to force you to watch. See if I can force anybody to watch. You know what I'm talking about. If people come and go at about every 45 seconds, YouTube tells me. Average watch time is 3 minutes. Anyway, so I can't force anybody. But anyway, I'm not sure that I want to air too much boring, tedious detail, because I really do lose viewers, so to speak, lose points. If it's points I want, I'm losing them. You're seeing enough of the process here. I'm going to continue drawing with brushes, and then maybe come back and draw with pencils. You know what? Let me talk to you just for a second. I don't think so. When I'm finished with this layer right here, there still might be just enough pencil peeking through. This will be the 3rd time I've done this. I'm wondering if my technique is adjusting. Here's almost certainly what I'm going to do. After this layer, the next layer is, and this will be my last one today. I won't even finish this today. After this layer, I'm going to do the fuzz layer. Stick around, you'll learn. It'll be tomorrow. I'll do the fuzz layer, then pencils, and then the final layer. Okay? But I think I've tormented you long enough watching me draw pretty detailed stuff. Before I leave, I'm picking up some blue, a little bit of phthalo. Here we go, which mixed with the red. Now I've got a bluish tint on my brushes so that this part of the drawing now has this sort of burgundy purplish color. It's going to get bluer, the fine line. So I'm achieving a gradation of color. Look at the way I'm holding my brush. Can you believe that? I want to get this one curly key right there. And I'm sorry, I see people keep leaving comments, and I'm just facing the wrong way, gang. I'm so sorry that I missed those. There's a whole bunch, and you can see in the photograph here, let's let the camera adjust auto exposure, darken that. Yeah, hi Renee, good to hear from you. I appreciate the compliment, and yes, you need to go get Renee, one of my fellow Canucks. It's at British Columbia, right, Renee? Am I right in thinking that? Out west somewhere. I think I looked you up. Nice stuff. I appreciate that you enjoy watching me paint. There's quite a bit of, I'm calling it filigree, but bas relief, narrow, shallow sculpture in here. In my painting, I will of course try to indicate that that is there. By no means am I going to draw it. That would be outrageously too much detail. But I want to indicate that it is there. And the way I'm going to do that is not by drawing with these small brushes, but rather by achieving that look with my last layer. Maybe a little bit of pencil, and definitely with my final light opaque highlight layer. Yes, Northern BC. Wow. Renee, what beautiful country you live in. Are you house deep in snow still? Hey, you guys, you know what happened here yesterday? I'm in North Carolina, halfway south, I call it. It actually snowed almost all day. Not much, but quarter of an inch, half an inch, enough to cover some of the grass, the dead grass. That was crazy. That's pretty extraordinary here in our part of the world. It was kind of fun. I love snow. That's because I don't live in Northern BC, right, Renee? I mean, I love snow, I think, because I'm an artist. It's just breathtakingly beautiful. I grew up in snow country. My wife and I lived in Minnesota for several years, so I know somewhat of what I speak. Okay, I'm rambling. Thank you so much for joining me. Renee needs to get back to painting. Thank you, my friend. Thanks for watching. And I'll take up this tomorrow. Again, thanks for watching.